What is your most memorable story of petty revenge? Story 1. There's a new truck in my apartment's parking lot. Always taking up multiple spots, always. Weird angles, close to the stairs, all over the place. No assigned parking, unfortunately. Months of this. I drive a much smaller car than that, and I'm petty/passive-aggressive. I've been waiting for my chance. A few days ago was my shot. I got home quite late, and there were 0 spots open in my lot. Big truck is double parked again, but there's just enough room on the driver's side for me to sneak in there with my little clown car. I carefully pull in, making sure not to touch anything. No damage, no nothing. My passenger side mirror is half an inch from their driver's side door. I giggled to myself all the way back to my apartment and set an alarm and waited. The following morning, I woke up before the alarm to loud door slamming and stomping around. I check out my window and I see the double parking culprit walking around both vehicles, taking pictures, texting someone, taking more pictures. I'm shaking with glee. They then swallow their pride, let out a visual sigh, and climb in the passenger side, clamber over the center console, and Austin Powers 20-point, turn their butts out of the spot. I've never been so proud of myself and my shitty, petty, passive-aggressive ways. Story 2. I got reviewed at work by a manager I had never met before. I had done everything I was always told to do, and more, but he still marked me low. I know it's because they wanted to avoid giving me a raise, but at least say you don't want to / can't afford to. I'll at least respect your honesty. Anything else, and you can go F yourself. Anyway, he told me I didn't go the extra mile. I pointed out that I always do. His response: "Well, I never see you do it." I said, well, maybe if management didn't always hang out at guest services and went around to the other floors where I am doing my job, you'd have seen me. That got him to yell at me and mark me poorly for attitude, but idgaff. Later on, he came up to me and asked me if I could stay late. Given that I'd previously told him I didn't have anything else to do the next day, he probably thought I'd say yes. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Sorry, but I don't see that you guys need my help." Story 3. I did this unintentionally, but it's still revenge, petty. I don't know if you tell me. In elementary school, I would get pulled into a small room for one-on-one teaching sessions every week, and I would have 3/4 different teachers. This day I had the one I hated so much. My family didn't like her either. And I asked her if I could go to the bathroom. No. 10 minutes later I asked again. No. 4 minutes after asking that time, I stood up to tell her I really bad to go. She said, "No, shit down." Guys, it was too late. I was already going on the carpet. I was crying and her jaw went to the floor. That bitch was still cleaning it when I was walking back from the nurse's office. I was in 2nd grade. My grandma, she raised me, never wanted that teacher to teach me ever, and she got in trouble for not letting me go to the bathroom. Story 4. I posted this on Petty Revenge last year. Sorry about spelling and formatting because I'm on mobile. This happened almost a decade ago with my first boyfriend. He was a manipulative, selfish, raging douchebag, and I was a 16-year-old with no self-esteem. A match made in hell. He basically lived at my house and had me cook for him all the time. He was trying to impress one of my gangster pot-growing neighbors, so he would have me make them snacks multiple times a day. His favorite thing to eat was French fries. I would be making 3 or 4 batches a day. Since I was cooking so many fries, I would keep the Crisco I used to fry them in an empty coffee tin in the fridge. Over the course of 3 days, the Crisco smelled exactly like potatoes. So my ex asks me to make him some French fries yet again. I'm the only one paying for them too. When I tried to serve myself a plate of the fries I had just cooked, he yelled at me and said these were only for him and his friend. He took the whole heaping plate and ran off. My blood was boiling, and I plotted revenge. I waited for the Crisco to solidify, and I whipped it with a fork so it looked like mashed potatoes. Because of the many batches of fries, it smelled like mashed potatoes too. Now I just had to wait. Soon enough my ex was back, and he was still hungry because of all the pot he smoked with my neighbor. He had the balls to ask me for more fries. So I sweetly told him that I'd made mashed potatoes for him while he was gone. He was so pleased. He said, "Thanks, babe," and took the biggest spoonful he could straight put of the pot. He put the overflowing spoon straight into his gob with a huge smile on his face. His smile quickly turned into disgust, and he started violently throwing up in the sink. He never asked me to make fries again in our short relationship. I broke up with him, by the way. Story 5. So I've written here about my landlady's insane daughter once before, but she's back from college again for the summer and just as crazy as ever. Among other things, this girl literally throws fits of screaming and crying at all hours of the day and night, slams doors constantly for no reason, and refuses to speak at a volume quieter than a yell. She also never wears headphones when listening to anything. Our rooms are on opposite ends of the house, so when she's in her room I don't care. However, my room is unfortunately right off of the dining room, and she likes to set up shop at the dining room table, blasting music or whatever trash show she's binging. If she were a reasonable person, I would just ask nicely for her to turn the volume down. But since she isn't a reasonable person, and such requests are often met with intentional stomping around at 3 a.m. when she knows I have to be up at 5 a.m. for work, I have to get creative with making her shut the F up sometimes. Last night I got home from a 9-hour shift at work, exhausted, and retreated to my room to have a snack and get some sleep. I wasn't in my room 10 minutes before the demon set up shop at the dining room table. I don't know what show she was watching, but all I could hear was mumbled dialogue and then the world's most annoying laugh track after what seemed like every other sentence. It was 11 at night. I was tired, hungry, and now pissed off. So I booted up my laptop, went into my Netflix queue, and picked one of my favorite episodes of Call the Midwife, cranked my volume up, and not long after the opening credits came the screams of a woman giving birth. I left the episode running while I had my snack and got ready for bed, and wouldn't you know, by the time I was ready to sleep and turned the show off, I was met with complete silence from the dining room. Story 6. I hated art at school. I enjoyed learning about it, but I wasn't good at it, and our teacher didn't just favor the talented students, but she actually punished the bad students. It was ridiculously unjust. So I did my best at some art style, and was put in detention because she didn't like my last 3 pieces. In detention I had to stay after school and wash stuff. I threw out boxes of acrylic paint to spite her. Later that week, she couldn't find the acrylic paint for our lesson, and freaked the F out. I didn't think she'd have such a severe reaction, but then it became clear that she was stressed because she was a completely incompetent teacher and couldn't figure out a substitute lesson plan. She also thought she had misplaced the paint, and it was her fault, and began panicking that the head of department would reprimand her in some way. Another teacher came in and gave a substitute lesson plan to her. Petty, but pleasurable. Story 7. This one was truly petty. My dad was driving, and we came up on a construction truck driving the other way with a crew in back, placing cones in the center of the road as they slowly drove, just preparing for some construction. Dad slows down and offers some criticism of how they're putting the cones down. I don't even remember what. Maybe the cones were a bit far into our lane or something. Construction guy isn't having it. The conversation gets a bit heated. Dude gives Dad a F you. F me. No, F you. Dad proceeds to run over cones for an entire mile. Now I would have thought that they would have just gotten a little flattened, but the tire was actually throwing them behind the vehicle and frequently a lot to the left or right. Some were thrown completely off the road. All of them were just all over the place. He was a narcissist. This isn't even remotely the worst or most petty thing he did. It's just one I was there for. Story 8. My house was on the left side of a dead-end street. There was a house at the very end of the street facing the other way with its driveways attached to a different street on the other side. My roommate would always park in the front of our house on the street, but leave enough room for cars to get past, because the landlord of the other house graveled his backyard, so he could use our street to get to the house. It had driveways, but they were destroyed and very narrow up a hill, and had to be repaired to use them. He left a note on my roommate's car stating she can't park there, and he would tow her car as she did. I may have gotten irrationally pissed off by this old man trying to bullshit a house full of college girls. So I did what any good friend would do. My friend was a civil engineer intern for the city, and he got the city to put up guardrails at the end of the street, so he could no longer use his backyard as an entrance, and had to spend the money to fix his driveways. Neighbor 1 and 2 were owned by the same slumlord. They are facing the other street, both with driveways. The red car is my roommate car, and she would try to park far enough over to leave enough room as a courtesy. It was tight because the neighbor had a shed in their backyard, limiting the space to get in from the street to the backyard. Story 9. An uncle of mine was a serious drug addict and an all-around asshole. When I was a kid, it was pretty common for him to steal from my grandparents, including a lot of things they intended to give me when I was older, a coin collection, things like that. There's a long list of things he did over the course of my life to piss me off, but I'll skip to the petty revenge. I was browsing the local county website and noticed there was a section for active warrants. I wondered if any familiar names were listed, so I browsed it, and to my complete lack of surprise, I saw my uncle's name listed for something minor. Then I saw the Crime Stoppers number at the top of the page. I knew where he was living at the time, and it was anonymous. So what the hell? I called, described him, and told them where he was. They gave me a reference number and told me to call back in 2 weeks. For the sake of being thorough, I called a relative from the other side of the family who, funny enough, was not only a cop but also in charge of following up on these things. I told him the situation, and he said he'd prioritize it. 2 weeks later, I called Crime Stoppers for an update, and they said the tip did indeed lead to an arrest, and asked which post office I preferred. I was confused, but I named one. They gave me an alias, told me to give that name to the clerk, and there would be a general delivery envelope with $200 cash inside. That part was unexpected, but a sweet bonus for sure. Easiest $200 I ever made. Story 10. A mean girl at high school spread rumors and made other girls afraid to ask me out after I rejected her in front of everyone. For more context, I had never even flirted with her or even hung out with her friends. They were the gossipy, drama, pregnant by senior year girls. However, they were really popular. I was a poor kid who lost his house, and my mom couldn't even afford to feed us every day. It was kinda out there. Lots of people knew how my family lost our stuff. However, apparently I was really cute, and there were a bunch of girls who would give me food or candy in hopes that I would be their boyfriend. Sometimes those gifts would be the only food I ate all day. That all ended the day she asked me out, and I said no. None of the other girls dared to talk to me, because that group of bitches would ruin their lives. I was constantly tormented by petty rumors, trashed stuff, and insults. So I decided to graduate school early and join the military. Then I went to college, got an engineering degree and a good job. Went back home and out to eat only to run into one of her friends pretending that what they did was just friendly teasing. I politely walk away when I see her, that bitch who made high school a living hell. She flags me down like we were old buddies and tells me that she's holding various raffles and sports numbers for the playoffs. Then invites me out to her house. I wanted to curse her out then and there, but I see she has her kids with her. So I take the flyer and drop by to scope out the place. Then I call the state attorneys about illegal gambling activities. Then I proceed to call Child Protective Services about her allowing underage drinking at her football parties. Then I call various other agencies about other violations. Bitch's mugshot appears in the newspaper a few weeks later.